This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, I'm Meteo Mundo Chief Meteorologist Rusty McCraney. Thanks for watching this video on this Thursday, September the 21st. Boy, we've got some areas of interest to talk about across the Caribbean, the Bahamas, and the United States East Coast. Again, if you like the content, make sure you hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel. Stuff we're going to be watching for you as we get to the weekend. First of all, I want you to notice the newest information is we now have what we call potential tropical cyclone number 16. I'm going to talk a lot more about this one coming up, but it will more than likely become either a subtropical storm or a true tropical storm as it moves up the North Carolina coastline over the weekend. We still have Nigel, which is moving to the north and to the east, but again, losing strength and well away from any landmass. And we still have this area of interest that we're going to have to very closely monitor. Wave coming off the West African coast, a high likelihood of tropical development in the next 4 to 5 days. So early next week, we could have yet another named storm here in the southern sides of the Atlantic Basin, headed to potentially, again, the Windward, the Leeward Islands, and Puerto Rico. So I want you to notice that the Hurricane Center on this kind of last look at the storm formation area is now butting up against the Leeward and the Windward Islands, and we are going to include Puerto Rico and Hispaniola in that as well. If you live in these areas, I've mentioned it the last couple of days, just keep a really close eye to the forecast. I'll keep you updated right here on Meteo Mundo, but there is an opportunity to have a tropical system of some kind moving this way early next week and into midweek. Now, again, there are still very large discrepancies within the models because this is still just an open tropical wave. Nothing has developed as of yet. And the models, again, are not very skillful in what it's going to do as it moves west. The GFS model is more aggressive and farther off towards the south compared to the European model. That's kind of the last couple of frames of this loop. Let's go back through this. You're going to see it's moving more due west. It wraps it up in the western Atlantic and then does drive what could be a fairly significant tropical system. Hard to tell if that would be a tropical storm or a hurricane into the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico as we get into early next week. This is over the next 7 days. I'm going to pause it right here. This is going to be 6 days out, so this would be next Wednesday. And again, this is the GFS model, which would bring a significant system to places like Anguilla and Guadeloupe, St. Kitts and Nevis, there's Antigua, and then on over towards the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, San Juan, Ponce. So again, this is still just one model. I want to be very clear about that. The European model still is not nearly as aggressive and in a completely different area, but one of the major models does bring, again, a fairly significant system into this area. Now, it is a little bit further north compared to this time yesterday. That would be great news. Maybe even if this does develop into something strong, we get that recurve to the north and west, to the east and northeast of the Leeward Islands. That would be great. But again, at this point in time, this is watch and wait mode. Plenty of time to watch this for you to see if this particular model pans out. Again, not necessarily going to happen for sure. Put that into motion for you one more time. And really, you know, the European model, excuse me, the GFS model has that kind of tropical train with another disturbance trying to develop on the heels of that one as well. I can show you the European model just like yesterday. And this one is the same time frame over the next 7 days. You're going to see a very weak system develop and move north and west quickly, well away from the Leeward and the Windward Islands. So the European model is much more aggressive in turning this system quicker to the north. It would be fantastic news for all the islands that I just mentioned, but it shows you the discrepancy in the two major global models, especially again, when you're talking about an area that hasn't even developed as of yet. So just for informational purposes only, friends, but if you live in these areas, I promise I'll keep you updated. Let's get back into it here. I want to now get to that other area, the one that's going to be across the east coast of the United States. So now there's a higher likelihood of actually getting some development here. We have a very broad area of circulation, a few hundred miles off the United States East Coast, just to the north of the northwest sides of the Bahamas. And this one does look like it's going to develop at least into a subtropical system. Now, they've named this potential tropical cyclone 16, and it's the most confusing thing ever. What that means is a potential tropical system has not yet developed into a tropical cyclone, but it could bring tropical storm or even hurricane conditions to a land area within 48 hours. They went to this designation a few years ago because of systems that were developing just off of coastlines, and they wanted to give people more heads up and said, hey, look, this hasn't developed yet, but it's so close to land that we do expect tropical storm conditions at least within the next 48 hours. And I've mentioned that this system was certainly going to be a wind maker regardless of whether it's a subtropical system or an actual tropical storm. And again, subtropical systems get named, so more than likely this is going to be the O-named storm, Ophelia, riding up the coastline here into the Carolinas. So again, just looking at this right now, you can see the track does make it a tropical storm, drives it into the Outer Banks of North Carolina, then kind of up the Virginia, Maryland coastlines, and then brings it back kind of offshore. But basically, this is going to be such a broad center of circulation with a fairly ill-defined low-level circulation that, again, you don't really focus on one area when you're talking about this. We're going to see some breezy conditions develop Freeport, Grand Bahama, up towards Walker's Key and portions of Abaco, but the main system is lifting to the north. We'll talk about the marine forecast for the Bahamas here coming up in just a little bit, but more than anything, this is just going to bring the opportunity for some breezy conditions and some swells to the Bahamas. So this is, again, the GFS model. I'm going to back it down in time here just a little bit to only include the weekend, and then we'll put that into motion for you here. Same thing, it's the reflectivity. We'll let it cycle one time for you here, and you can see it moving right up the coastline. Again, a fairly ill-defined center. There is a little bit higher chance, though, of actual development. The Hurricane Center was not as likelihood of this the last couple of days, but now thinks it could be. But again, you're still looking at an elongated system. The biggest impact is going to be tropical storm force winds. Okay, and also the opportunity to have some very rough surf and sea conditions from the Outer Banks, and this would include the Chesapeake Bay area as well, all the way down towards South Carolina and Georgia. I want to actually go back to that product that I was just looking at a minute ago, take off the satellite imagery, because here I can actually show you that the Hurricane Center actually has issued tropical storm warnings. If you notice these areas in blue right here, that does include from the Delaware, Maryland line all the way back down towards North Carolina. All those areas in blue, tropical storm warnings are in effect. So they do expect tropical storm conditions here as we get into the weekend to impact the Outer Banks and then towards Chesapeake Bay, and then moving back offshore. So just wanted to highlight that for you real quick as well. Okay, let's get back into the radar here. I'll again put that back into motion. And again, you can see it does wrap up a little bit there as we get into the weekend. A little bit stronger, might be a little bit more tightly wrapped right over North Carolina. Thus, you have those tropical storm warnings that are currently in effect. I'm going to step that out in time just a little bit more. You can see it wrapping up, but again, it's in pieces. It's certainly not going to be a strong system, but if you're talking about some pretty lashing waves and winds across the U.S. East Coast, this then kind of hugs the coastline towards Cape Cod and New England, and then moves back offshore. So again, it's going to be kind of a gnarly weekend there. The surf and sea conditions will be up. Still going to be fairly wet for the Bahamas. There'll be a little bit of tropical moisture left behind. Not nearly as wet as it's been, but I do want to highlight for the Bahamas that I do expect some showers to kind of linger across this system as well. Let's go back and look at the wind gusts. We've done this the last couple of days as well. So taking a look at the wind gusts in this area, put that into motion as well. And again, it's the same scenario. The GFS model has been pretty consistent on keeping a fairly weak low-level circulation. It might tighten up just a little bit at the end, but we're going to see stronger winds on the northern and the western sides. And again, you get to the reds, you have the opportunity for some tropical storm force wind gusts. This is not sustained winds, but gusts that could be of tropical storm strength. And you can see that again wrapped up as it heads towards the Outer Banks, places like Kitty Hawk and Duck. I've visited that area many, many times. Love those beaches. They're going to have a rough surf and sea condition here on up towards Norfolk and Virginia Beach, and then again towards the Chesapeake Bay area. So the opportunity in this region here, basically kind of along and east of I-95, for the potential for some tropical storm conditions for you here again over the weekend. And then as we head into New England and the Northeast towards early in the week, but most of that heaviest wind then stays offshore. So that's the biggest issue with what I expect out of this system for that area. Do want to get back quickly to the Bahamas and again look at the rain in that area, loop that into motion. It's been wet. We're going to let this loop one more time. Again, scattered showers tomorrow. A little bit more rain for your Saturday, and then it dries up a bit as well. But again, even into the central Bahamas, the opportunity for some rain around Georgetown and Arthurstown, and then back into the southern Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos as well. So again, just highlighting that we'll have some scattered showers in this area. It's not going to be as wet as it's been. That subtropical system or even a potentially named tropical storm will be moving to the north, but we're going to have some scattered showers in the Bahamas the next several days. Now, speaking of the marine forecast, starting for tomorrow, we're going to have a pretty brisk north wind, 10 to 20. It's going to really kick up the surf and sea conditions, the exposed waters of the Atlantic, the northern sides of Grand Bahama and Walker's Key. The sheltered areas will have seas of 2 to 3 feet, but do look for some long period swells on Friday. As that system pulls away, the winds will swing out of the east. They'll relax a little bit at around 8 to 12 knot. Seas will be running around 2 to 3 feet. So again, two big systems to watch out for. The potential Ophelia along the east coast over the weekend, and then that one tropical wave moving into the southern Atlantic basin. We'll just have to see where that heads and how strong it will get over the week ahead. Thanks for watching, friends. If you like the content, if it's helping you out, please subscribe to the channel, like the video as well. It helps us tremendously. We'll see you back with the next forecast right here at Meteo Mundo.